Good morning. Next up, we have Toy Package Design, Mass versus Specialty, presented by Matt Nuccio of Design Edge. Matt?
Thank you very much. All right, I guess we'll just dive into it. But I will open the floor to questions, because often when I talk about packaging, people have very specific things that they want to know about. So if any questions come to mind, you can hold them off to the end, and then we'll go through and you guys can talk. So, all right, so we're going to go through just like some key factors that makes a package successful. And like, so basically, I can read it to you if you want, but basically we're just going through like the key elements that make like a mass package sort of work here. You know, that's visual appeal, it's strength, it's where the way things are pointing in. You know, simple, bold designs do work best. And to keep the appeal is critical, letting it really complementing itself to what generally licensing and or the brand is. So versus specialty, where we're really focusing a bit more on the package, more as like, say, almost like a coffee table book. Like the package becomes more of a speaking point for the retailer to sort of walk somebody in, pick it up, show it to them. They have a presentation. It's part of the whole sales pitch, opposed to mass, where this has to sell on its own. This has no help whatsoever other than it's sitting on the shelf and you're walking by at breakneck speed and you go, oh, my kids love Monopoly, my kids love Spider-Man, let's grab this. Opposed to, again, an item that just looks really pretty and becomes a good talking point. But of course, there's other points in there, as you can see, things that, you want to make sure, cool points of like making it recyclable, the nice sleek looking package, things that just clean elements, opposed to, what's generally the chaos of mass packaging. And then you want it, the messaging has got to be clear, it's got to be simple, so you want the face of your product, it's what really needs to grab the attention instantly, with clean images and, again, whatever the strongest points are. So in like this case, it's really a fun name of a product against a really bright color for like what the flock, opposed to Disney villains. Showing the villains is more important than actually writing villains. So, because that visual cue everybody knows at any age. So one thing I like to point out though is like we'll go through both these. So when it comes to say game packaging, or most packaging in general, the front of the package is the visual appeal. I always like to make the comparison. If you see somebody you're attracted to, like at a bar or something, the front of the package is how good looking they are, so that draws you in to walk over and talk to them. The back is how intelligent they are. This is where you learn about the person. This is where the conversation starts. So again, draws you in, does the talking for you. All right, and then, so again, another thing that's important that people often mistake is they don't realize packaging sizing isn't arbitrary. There's certain things, requirements that need to be met, whether it be a pallet program or a planogram or Amazon shipping sizing. So everything gets dictated, and retailers have planograms, so they have shelves mapped out. So if you go to like Barnes & Noble, for instance, they know exactly how much space that they have, and they have to be able to, if a product's not doing well, they're going to want to be able to pull that product off and replace it with something else. So if your product is an odd shape or a crazy size, they might not pick up your line because simply they'd have to relay out their entire store to accommodate you. So now people go, well, how do you get the sizing? The buyer can discuss it with you, but the easiest way really is to go to that retail and look what's on shelf and measure what's going on there. The facing is more important than the depth. You can get away a little bit with the depth. So if you're like, how are we going to do this? It needs to be bigger. Make it deeper if you can. Again, more examples of what I was just talking about. And then, of course, this is a big planogram. If you're lucky enough and successful enough, you can get 3, 4, 5, 6 feet into retail. But if you're starting out, one item in one slot, that size is definitely going to matter. Common mistakes we find in packaging. The most common mistake I see, monochromatic packaging. A lot of people do this because they think it looks nice, because they're thinking of design as if it's on a web page or if it's a coffee table book, but it's not. Packaging is more akin to a billboard that you're driving by at 80 miles an hour than it is a coffee table book that you're sitting in front of and staring at, or a computer screen that's right in front of you. You really have to grab people's attention as fast, as impactful as possible. And monochromatic packaging is just camouflage. You'll get completely lost. And I know when you look at it in front of you, this looks beautiful, it's doing you no good. Watch your spacing. This is one of my favorite. Look at the first, flick your chip. there were some issues with the way that people, what they thought that was spelling, and that's just a really good example of really bad spacing. So, and then, okay, here's everyone here, I hope, knows who Steve Buscemi is. I think he's a great example of what packaging should be. A lot of people try to make the most beautiful package that they've ever made, and they think that if they make it gorgeous, that's going to attract everybody. Yes, attractive does work. Attractive is helpful. But if you have a room full of models and Steve Buscemi standing in the corner, you will notice Steve Buscemi before you'll see through most of those models. So it's more important for your package to communicate and stand out than it is for it to be gorgeous. So I know a lot of people have a hard time thinking of that. Yes, you can figure out how to do both, but if you have to choose one or the other, make sure it stands out. And then again, just some key considerations. By the way, if anyone wants this later, you can reach out to me and I can send you the whole deck, because I know I'm blasting through it because I'm slightly hungover and from the toadies, so this is where I'm at. So just, some elements that I was talking about before. And then, when it comes down to, e-commerce, again, sizing is very important. Also, if you're e-commerce focused, the front of the package has to tell the story of what this product does instantly, because that is it's not just your package, it's also your web page, it's your Amazon page. So, and then of course some key points there. I'm not going to read through those because I can't see, and also, eco-conscious packaging has become very popular and it's well worth doing. So pay attention to your materials, your packing. This actually may help you get into certain retailers too if they know that your stuff is biodegradable or can be composted or whatever. Very simple packaging. In this case, it's just vegetable inks on raw cardboard. Obviously, it works for a company like Green Toys, but if you're more of a mass appeal, how do you do that? You can't really go with something so simple, but you can still use paper ties, or you can get rid of your vacuum form and do it with paper trays, and try to just limit the overall footprint of the package. And then just some conclusions. I'll leave that on the board for a bit, but I'd like to open up the floor to any questions if anyone has any. If not, I can jump in the corner and finish my water. So, is anyone? Nope. It's a lot of photos, huh? It's like, take a video of me bombing on stage. Yeah. No one? Oh, here we go. Thank you. Where do you get my contact? I can get.
Where do we get your contact information?
Sure. Do we go to that on the next page? No, we don't. Be good. Thank you. But my email address is matt@designedge.net. Also, if you want to grab me in the corner, I can give you my business card. And of course, you can go to the Design Edge website. And if you just Google my name, I do a lot of these sort of things, so I come up pretty easily. So there's not a lot of. Sometimes if you literally just type in Matt and toy design, it'll just come up. I don't know why that is, but it's creepy.
Are there any examples of a package that does well for one or more of these examples? Because not everybody can afford to do a different package for each.
Yes. So if you really have to go in one direction, believe it or not, mass market packaging is probably your best route to follow. But just try to keep it as clean as possible. Anyone else? We can't hear you. That's your mic. Oh, okay. So she wants to know my background in the toy industry. So I grew up in the toy industry. My first packaging jobs, I was a kid as a model. This is my 37th consecutive toy fair. Design Edge is going on 40 years of business, and we design packaging for Mattel, Hasbro, Spin Master, Jax, down to specialty. We do it for retailers, and we do it on a global level too, not just for the U.S. So we do business in Latin America, Europe, Asia, for all different types of packaging. So for all different types of markets. Can we get her the mic, please? Sorry.
Speaking of packaging, not too long ago, there was Rubik's Cubes that kind of like opened up and then like kind of went up. Can we talk about that package?
Okay, yeah, so there are other types of packages that aren't retail facing. So we won a Taggy last year for a package we did for Rubik's Cube for Spin Master, which was only intended to give to like celebrities who were seen using Rubik's Cube. So we built a box that when you opened it up, the entire tray came up and all the Rubik's Cubes sort of just popped right out. So that's not a retail-facing package. So there are all different types of packaging, including shipping cartons and master cartons, and all these things have very specific requirements. Up.
When it comes to doing custom packaging, do you feel like you get your return? Is it effective to have a really unique internal design to the box? And if you do that, is it important to have that also be, like, I know you talked about eco, but how important is it to have it be fully branded all the way inside and out?
So, well, depends on the type of package.
Okay.
So that's a fair question. If it's a closed box, not so much, but if you're specialty leaning, yes, you want to extend on the experience. While if you notice a lot of mass stuff, you literally just shake it out and there's a bunch of poly bags with the parts in it,
Right.
Because it comes down to margin. But if you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to get your word out there and you're blasting out through specialty, the entire experience matters.
Okay.
But there are ways to do it cost effectively. So you should really just get an idea of what the costs are and what you're doing. Speak with your vendor and your manufacturer to see if that's the best option.
You mentioned that you do packaging both in the U.S. and international. What do you think about with those different markets when you're designing packaging?
Well, they are very different, and we do some development for you guys too. But there's actually some big differences. So if you're doing something in Europe, there's multiple languages that we have to take into consideration. And depending on Europe, we've had to do some packaging that could be as much as 5 or 7 languages on a package. Or even if you just go across the border into Canada, again, 2 languages, and everything has to be equal sizing. So it can be very tricky. So for international, we try to limit as much copy as possible, and we try to just have very, very quick points that sort of tell it. And even on the back, we can't have a big explanation. So this is why traditionally, if you go to Europe, you'll notice like skill and action games are very popular. It's because you can instantly look at that package and you know how to play that game. So in Europe, we try to make sure that the visuals on the package teach you how to play it or how to use it.
Hi. So how do you balance between illustrations and the real photo on the packaging?
Well, it's the company identity. So it's really, oftentimes you want to, when you're building out your packaging, you don't want to be all over the place. You actually want your company to have a certain look. So once you start falling into one, you really want to just carry that over. Then another thing is we tend to, when it comes to preschool, if they're toddlers, we'll use photos, but if they start getting older, say 4 to 8, we usually do illustrations, sort of just make it more fun, more cartoony. But again, it's really case by case for the product, so there's no straight answer for that. But I would do, again, whatever serves the product the best.
How large is your company, and do you ever hire student interns?
How large is my company? And well, we have 3 offices. One not too far from here on Long Island. It's got 20 people there. Then 2 more offices in China because we also manufacture for a lot of people. And so, it's large enough for a design firm. And we do take interns. Yes, yes.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Steven.
How you doing?
Good.
We
Latin
work-
American packaging.
We work together. But I do have a question. In terms of open box or window box or color box, how do you decide on an item that can be both?
Well, open window boxes are very tricky these days. A few years ago, I could have given you a very straight answer on that, but shipping becomes an issue with open window boxing these days. So a lot of the Amazon distributors don't like them. So we have to, while we used to try to make something more and more open, now we have to kind of dial it back a bit so they can fit into the box and the part doesn't get banged around. And to some extent, specialty doesn't love completely open packaging either because it's difficult for gift wrapping. So it depends on the type of item.
But
if we know
the
it's very
experience
giftable,
changes, right? The experience at the floor level changes.
yes, and if it's very giftable, you might want to avoid too open of a package because that issue. And if you're like, say, Astra or the specialty walking around here, they might walk right past you because they're like, that's a nightmare to gift wrap. They won't even talk to you. You didn't even realize you lost the sale.
These are three different markets, obviously. How do you advise people on packaging when they're selling into all three markets?
Well,
And then my second question is on celebrating all sustainable, environmentally friendly. Does that help right now in the market? So 2 questions.
So I'll start with the last one, and the quick answer is yes. Celebrating that, it's on everybody's mind. It's hard to be completely green. A lot of companies ask me to be green-ish. That's their words, not mine. But again, if your question is like, how do you balance between all those markets? Well, if you've already had success and you're at mass, you're really trickling down because you've got the brand exposure already. If your product's successful enough to be at Walmart and Target, you have the equity, as far as mass goes. So again, I would just design it for mass and try to keep it as clean as possible. Because if you make it for specialty and it gets on the shelf at a Target, it's going to get lost. No one's going to know what it is. I always for 5 minutes, nobody wants to talk, then all of a sudden it's just like,
So when it comes to, there's a card game I have that holds 5 decks of cards, 50 cards apiece. So the insert, would you recommend doing a cardboard insert to hold the decks of cards, or what's your opinion on injected molded inserts?
well, it depends on the size of the card.
Regular playing size.
Regular playing card. It's a lot of cards. Are they all part of the same deck, or are they different decks for
They're
different
different
purposes?
decks.
I would separate them by boxes and have them put into. I'd have the corrugated sheet be able to hold those pieces. Otherwise, you're just going to you're open that box. It's going to be a catastrophe. People are going to get frustrated trying to sort through things later. You need to think about what they do with the cards after they're done playing and how easily they can get it together so the experience is, again, brand new when they open it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Matt. In your opinion, what is the best balance for cost effectiveness with mass market appeal materially? So getting the most bang for your
Sure.
buck, basically.
Graphics. It's your graphics, yeah. Your graphics going to be your best bang for the buck. You get into funky box shapes and stuff like that. It's going to cost you more, not just for a new die line, but also there's assembly involved in there. Sometimes that can have effect on the cube for shipping, and all that comes out of your margin. So, one thing about packaging that people overlook is your name is part of your packaging. So when you're naming your product, try to pick a name that's descriptive. If people know from the name of the product what it does, you've already won half the battle. If you're trying to make some brand new word that no one's ever heard of, or but you think it's cool, it's very hard to create new words in a lexicon. So just keep that in mind.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask, I like to focus on disability and inclusion. So do you have any recommendations for making accessible packaging? Probably vision or low impaired, or maybe easier to open packaging?
The opening of packaging this is a challenge, and it's not because designers don't want to address it, or the retailers don't want to address it, or the manufacturers don't. But drop testing makes everything difficult because, simply put, for drop testing, it's got to fall off a ladder, right, pretty much, and not fall all over the place. And to do that, you have to secure some stuff pretty strong. And if it fails drop testing, your product's failing testing, period. Retail, you'll have a catastrophe, and you'll be paying for that through your distributor and or your retailer once it's all over the place. We have 2 minutes, apparently. Can we get 1 2-minute question from somebody? Oh, we got a couple here. Hold on.
Just the colors. Are there certain colors that do better? We've been told that yellow, for example, is bad in specialty retail. Blue and red are better. What's your take on the color?
I've heard everything you could imagine from people telling me what works and what doesn't. I also get people telling me to make it blue because their kid's favorite color is blue. What it really comes down to is contrast. That's what's more important than the color. There's no wrong color. It just has to have strong contrast. When I was going to design school at FIT over here, they used to tell us black packaging's the worst. Never do black packaging. They don't buy it. Never do food in black packaging. You go to the supermarket now, everything's in black. It's just trends. It's trends like anything else. Yellow might not be popular while skinny jeans are popular, but once baggy pants are done, everyone's going to want yellow. It's just the way that it is.
Hi. For a newer brand, What is your opinion on mixed materials for packaging? Like
What kind of brand?
for a newer brand, like something starting out, like sometimes they mix cardboard and vellum. What's your opinion on that from a budgeting standpoint?
Well, vellum gets hard because it's some retailers won't take it because it's the material itself is expensive and it's also not exactly recyclable. We used to do a lot of vellum packaging in the early 2000s, and it looked great. I mean, everyone remembers when Bratz came out. Part of the appeal was the packaging was probably more expensive than the part, which, by the way, is another big point. Invest in your packaging. It really is your front line of sales. You know, a good package can up the value of a product tremendously done right. Time's up. So thank you, everyone. I'll scoot over there if you got any questions.